Reasonable suspicion and probable cause. To avoid being accused of picking on people or acting without good reason to stop persons or search persons, you need to have reasons for your actions. Your suspicions that a person is acting inappropriately or in violation of campus rules or is committing a crime must be reasonable. Your reasons have been defined by the court as reasonable suspicion. If you learn to develop reasonable suspicion to stop persons or conduct searches, you will act in a more professional manner and diminish the prospect that you will be accused of acting in bad faith or being a bully. To be able to do this, just ask yourself some 4 simple questions. Number 1, does a situation relate to the campus? Number 2, does a situation pose a safety hazard? Or 3, do I have the legal authority to search and or seize the person or items? And is my search and seizure within district policy? So all 4 of these things you must ask yourself. Reasonable suspicion is actually defined as a state of facts which would lead a person of ordinary care and prudence to believe and conscientiously entertain an honest suspicion of a school rule violation, possession of contraband, or a crime. It's also to add that the facts and circumstances within the officer's knowledge and which they have reasonable and trustworthy information are sufficient to warrant a man of reasonable caution in the belief that an offense has been or is being committed by the person to be arrested or that an item subject to seizure will be found in the place to be searched. Sus- Specific factors are considered in determining reasonable suspicion and probable cause. Also, when deciding whether your suspicion was reasonable, the court or administrative hearing panel will look at all the factors, the totality of the circumstances, but some factors will get more weight than others. Specific factors of reasonable suspicion are discussed in this section to assist you in developing reasonable suspicion. The conduct discussed is factors the courts have defined as conduct that would indicate to an officer that a person is acting suspiciously. One of those things is flight. If you approach someone or a group of kids and one or more of them walks or runs away, the person or persons are considered to be in flight. Flight may properly be considered as helping to provide reasonable suspicion or probable cause of criminal activity or school rule violations when it is combined with other suspicious factors. So flight alone isn't that great. So you have to have other violations combined together. The reason why flight isn't good alone, just going back to the last slide there, is because some people are just afraid of authority. I don't know. Some people just, different people act differently. So that by itself isn't good enough. You have to have that combined with other factors. Information from others, other officers, informants, citizens, radio, or outside sources. School officials are not held to the same standards reliability as the police. Nervousness might be a great indicator. Many people are nervous when talking to a person in authority. However, if the person becomes agitated and or abnormally nervous, it may be an indication that he or she is hiding something or has involved in inappropriate behavior. Big one right here, everybody, refusing to identify. Schools have a compelling need for the safety of students to determine who is on the campus and why. If a person refuses to tell you who they are or give an explanation of why they are on campus, it may be a reason to investigate further. Many campuses require students and staff to carry and produce district IDs when asked. Therefore, if a student fails to produce a school ID, then it could be a violation of school rules. An outsider who fails to identify themselves and give a reasonable explanation of their presence may be a trespasser. If you feel the person is about to destroy evidence or injure someone, you may need to stop the person from destroying the evidence or injuring other persons or property. Description. You may have received a description of a person or vehicle that was involved in previous incident. The local police officer, a fellow officer, a parent, or a teacher or custodian may have observed a suspicious person or activity and pass the information on to you. You are not held to the same standard as a police officer, so you may use the information as a basis to question persons or search persons if necessary. Areas of recent campus violations. A violation of the law or of a campus rule is a reason to stop and talk to someone. Smoking out of class without permission, tardy, in restricted areas are all reasons to question someone. If you can document an area that is used for rule violations or crime, you may detain individuals and question them as to their reasons for being in the area. We all went to high school, and you remember there was that one kickback area that was well hidden where all the kids would usually, either smoke funny tweeds or or do some other sort of crazy things that teenagers tend to get into. We all remember, we all knew where those areas were, and those are things that you need to recognize also as a campus security officer, and they need to be documented. There's always certain areas where gang members like to hang out. They always love to hang out and meet up at the same places. So remember that, but don't let them know that. You document it, and you keep it for, intelligence persons, for you and your fellow officers in the administration. And the police sometimes. Casing an area. A person walking through the parking lot looking into cars, or walking through the locker room checking for open lockers, or walking through hallways looking into classrooms could be a person looking for something to steal, or someone to assault, or just to plain out cause trouble. If you stop and talk with someone and they make a rapid movement to their pocket, as if to shove something down and out of sight, or a rapid movement as of shoving something in a backpack, this could be a reason to ask them to see what's in their pocket or backpack. Anybody has kids out there, they've this has happened. They hurry up and hide, and you could tell when that's happened. It's very obvious. Evasive statements or lying. If the person responds to your questions with answers that are incorrect or not totally accurate, if you ask someone why he or she is out of class and tells you that he or she just left Mrs. Smith's algebra class and you know that Mrs. Smith is not on campus that day, this could be a reason to check the statement further and to dig further into the story. Hiding or running. If you approach a person and he or she runs from you and attempts to hide, you would have a reason to question the person and obtain an explanation of the behavior. Hiding or concealing items. Hiding evidence or items the person is not allowed to possess, such as contraband. If you smell cigarette smoke coming from a bathroom, or see beer bottles in a locker, or hear breaking glass coming from a classroom, or see a knife in someone's pocket, you may search and seize the items. I know that we're cramming a lot down here, and it feels like information overload, so I know how that is. A lot of this stuff, everybody, just comes with experience. You will learn many things while working as a security officer on a school campus, and you may use your experience to justify stopping someone or conduct a search, coupled with other factors of reasonable suspicion. You must be prepared to state specifically how you gain that experience and how often you experience the behavior in question. For example, on 4 prior occasions during the fall semester, you observed students going behind the stadium to smoke cigarettes or marijuana. Don't overlook your experience. Bulges. Bulges in the person's clothing, coupled with the factors stated previously, could justify a stop and search. An example is given on the next page. You receive information from the custodian that several students have been smoking in the B Wing restroom. When you approach, you smell smoke coming from the restroom. A student comes out of the restroom and tells you he has permission to be out of class from Vice Principal Jones, who is not on campus that day. When you ask him for his name, he gives you a name you know to be false, and then makes a rapid movement towards his front pocket. You see a bulge in his pocket. Taken in light of all of the information above, you could remove the item from the front pocket. This is where things are different for campus security guards as opposed to just regular security duty off of a school campus. History of the person. What is the history of the person that we are talking about? Are they a gang member, a tagger, or a person recently suspected of fighting? Time of day is also a factor. Time is very important for the security officer. The California Penal Code designates the hour before and the hour after school a safe school period. Behavior that would be normally during the regular school day might be suspicious after school, such as waiting for a ride at 2 p.m. in front of the school is normal, while waiting in front of the school for a ride at 2 a.m. is definitely not normal. Birds of a feather flock together. There's that old saying. The company the person keeps. If a person is in the company of known gang members, taggers, or marijuana smokers, bunch of stoners, that would be a reason to question his or her behavior. And of course, the age of the person is always a factor. A lot of what happens on a campus is determined by the age of the person. Persons who have graduated should generally not be back on campus ever. Juveniles generally should not be loitering on college campuses during the time the K-12 school is in session. Totality of the circumstances. No exact formula tells us how to decide whether there was a probable cause to arrest or search or reasonable suspicion. Instead, we look to the totality of the surrounding circumstances and decide each case on its own facts. So a good rule of thumb is never just go by one thing and one thing only. Consider the totality, the total, the whole total package of why you have reason to believe that this person is doing what they're doing. Don't ever just go based on one thing and one thing only. Put everything together. Take your time. Don't be lazy. Put everything together and come up with a good case. Don't just go based on a hunch or your first instinct. School officials and reasonable suspicion. School officials in the K-12 environment have greater latitude in detaining persons on campus than a peace officer would. School officials, including school security officers, need fewer factors than peace officers would need, because you are not held to the same standards as a peace officer, and you are on campus to protect students in a K-12 campus where you are protecting children. The California Constitution. Recent decisions by the courts and California law have given greater authority to school officials to conduct searches and seize persons on K-12 campus. School officials have the duty and authority to protect and discipline children attending or public schools and act in the place of the child's parents. Well, that's called local parenti, by the way. We'll talk more about that later. This concept does not apply to community colleges where adults attend the school. The special need of maintaining a safe and secure campus is an overriding reason to allow non-sworn school officials to stop and search students for weapons and other items that could jeopardize the safety of the students and the staff. The seizures and searches cannot be arbitrary, meaning you can't just do them, or undertaken for the purpose of harassment. School officials do not need reasonable suspicion to pull a student out of class or detain the student during school hours.